Good evening, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening on this 68-degree spring evening. I hope some of you are outside, as we last said on social media, so you can enjoy the beautiful weather and the University of St. Joseph's virtual learning series. My name's Tom Hickey. I'm from 2020 Media, this evening's media partner. And my main reason this evening to say hello first is so that I can introduce our digital specialist who makes all of this look so easy and run so smoothly. Her name is Hillary, and I'll turn it over to you, Hillary.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I just wanted to quickly mention a couple of features. After our wonderful speakers are introduced and give a little bit of a chat, you guys will have the opportunity to ask questions. And you can do so either in the chat room, feel free to type it in, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. Or if you want to use the raise hand feature and ask the question yourself, you can do that. And to raise your hand, you go down to the bottom of your screen and hit reactions, and there's an option there to raise your hand, and we'll keep an eye on that as well. Yeah, that's
great. Thanks, Hillary. Appreciate it. And we're very laid back and very easygoing, so feel free to chime in at any time. It is my pleasure now to introduce the president of the University of St. Joseph's, for her warm welcome, Dr. Rhona Free.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. I want to thank everyone for coming virtually to the University of St. Joseph tonight. We're very happy to have this evening to talk about criminal justice careers. Our criminal justice program at the University of St. Joseph was launched a few years ago to prepare students for traditional careers in criminal justice, but also to create a program that had a special emphasis on restorative justice. I'm very grateful to the panelists who are here tonight, and they're going to talk about the range of careers open in this area, about how criminal justice and the required training have changed, and especially the options that open up with restorative justice training. I hope that we have viewers tonight of all ages and career stages, from students who are just entering college to experienced workers who may be interested in new career paths, because especially in this field, there's opportunity for and need for a diverse workforce. Now I'm honored to introduce Brian Foley, Executive Assistant of the Department of Emergency Service and Public Protection. A 24-year veteran of the Hartford Police Force, he became the public face of the department as its public information officer and retired in 2018 as chief of detectives. He served as TV station Fox 61's top investigator and law enforcement analyst for a year before returning to public service in his current role. Brian, thank you for your public service and for being here tonight. Brian.
All right, thanks, Doctor, and thanks to the University of St. Joseph's, and thanks to everyone on the panel tonight. We have a great, very experienced and very diverse panel here tonight to answer a lot of questions. I can tell you, back in 1993, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my career, but I certainly didn't want to be a police officer. I took the police test in Hartford for one reason. My mom basically made me. I did it to make her happy, and the next day I moved to Boston with no intent on ever becoming a police officer. But things progressed and things turned out the way they did, and taking a career in criminal justice is one of the best things that I have ever done, if not the best in my entire life. Again, we have a very diverse and very experienced panel tonight. I want to first introduce the first member of our panel is Brian Enns. He's assistant professor and director of the Criminal Justice and Restorative Justice program at the University of St. Joseph's. He's also a retired cop from the West Hartford Police Department after 23 years of service. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Enns. I'm an assistant professor here at St. Joe's and the director of our Criminal Justice and Restorative Justice program. I've been teaching now for about 7 years. Retired from West Hartford, like Brian said, after 23 years. Most of my career was spent in investigations.
Thank you so much, Professor. Our next panelist is Kendra Herrick. She is currently a supervisor for the Department of Corrections, Division of Parole and Community Services. She began her career with the department in 2005 as a parole officer in the Hartford district. In 2008, she transferred to the Special Management Unit as an officer supervising offenders convicted of sex crimes. In 2017, she became a supervisor assigned to the Waterbury District Office. In addition to holding a bachelor's degree in criminology, Parole Supervisor Herrick launched her career with Patrol through employment with the Bristol Alternative Incarceration Center as a case manager and court liaison. Kendra also comes very, very highly recommended from the command staff and commissioner's office of the Department of Corrections, and that's how she ended up on the panel tonight. Hello and welcome, Kendra.
Hi, thank you for the introduction, Mr. Foley. I just, wanted to take a few minutes this evening to give you guys a brief overview of Parole. I hope this is the right opportunity to do so. So I just wanted to indicate that the Division of Parole and Community Services is a division within the Department of Correction that is responsible for the supervision of offenders who are released prior to the end of their committed portion of the sentence. The division is currently responsible for supervising 3,900 offenders statewide. As a breakdown of the division, there are 5 district offices which are located in Norwich, New Haven, Bridgeport, Waterbury, and Hartford. And a parole officer can be assigned to any one of those district offices or a specialized unit housed within those districts. The division currently has 6 specialized units, which include the residential services unit, the mental health unit, the special management unit, the women's reentry unit, the fugitive investigations unit, and the training unit. There are also 2 administrative units within the division which employ correctional counselors as well. Currently, there are 127 parole officers and 16 correctional counselors within the division. And above that, there are 15 parole supervisors, 2 counselor supervisors, and a deputy director, followed by the director who oversees the division. Given the wide variety of functions a parole officer serves, training is issued in a vast array of areas, which includes firearms training, defensive tactical training, EPICS training, which is coming from a cognitive approach, validated risk assessment training, and de-escalation training. Collaboration with local law enforcement agencies and treatment providers, as well as developing a rapport with family members and sponsors, occurs frequently. And the ultimate goal, obviously, for parole and community services is successful community reintegration while ensuring public safety is not compromised. With that said, parole officers may be exposed to a considerable degree of danger or injury and therefore fall within the hazardous duty category. So there is eligibility for retirement after 25 years of service. Eligibility requirements, since this is a career-oriented webinar, for a parole officer include 6 years of experience in case management or community supervision with college training allowed for substitution. Parole officers do work a 40-hour work week, Monday through Friday. However, they are also on call 24/7 to respond to any emergency situations as they arise. So that was kind of my brief overview of parole. I want to just say, though, that I would strongly encourage anybody who's looking to get into this career, that it is a great career. And if you want a career path that blends public safety and rehabilitation, parole is definitely a good way to go.
Thank you, Kendra. Thank you so much. Finally, I'm honored to introduce a colleague and friend, Hartford Police Department retired Deputy Chief Emory Hightower. Emory was hired in 1994. He was a very respected community service officer on the streets of Hartford and the Hartford community. He rose through the ranks to the rank of Deputy Chief. Upon retiring in 2014, after 20 years of service, he got a very highly sought after job as an inspector with the state's attorney's office in Hartford. Inspector Hightower is now the supervisory inspector in that office. Thank you so much for participating tonight, Supervisory Inspector Hightower.
And I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this whole webinar. My career started in corrections, actually, prior to joining the Hartford Police Department. So I have a long career in law enforcement. And during that career, I was fortunate enough to meet and work with some wonderful people, both in corrections, in the Hartford Police Department, in the Hartford community at large. And I was able to take that after retirement and work with within the Hartford Judicial District, and continue to work with the community and do other things. So it's been wonderful. It's been a very rewarding career, and I appreciate all those opportunities. Thank you again for having me.
All right, thanks, Emory. So we're going to go into a question and answer format here where all the panelists here are free to answer darn near any questions. So everyone out there watching that's participating tonight, please feel free to ask anything. I know for speaking for myself, I can come prepared to darn near ask and answer just about anything you want to ask us. So please be creative and enjoy and take advantage of this wonderful opportunity to tap into these well-experienced minds here in front of you. Hillary, anything?
Nothing from the chat room yet.
All right, fantastic. So I'm gonna start with one of the questions that we came up with now. And while I do that, please people try to think of any questions that you might feel inclined to ask. And I'm gonna start with, let's go with number 5. This would be pretty much for all our panelists here. What are the salary ranges for the different entry-level positions in the criminal justice system? Kendra, did you already go over your salary ranges?
I did not. So salary range is actually, to start off with parole, as I indicated, you do need 6 years of case management experience. So before you would, get into parole, you would want to start off on a pathway, perhaps with some of the trainee positions that are available within DOC, which would be a counselor trainee or a parole officer trainee that's at the Board of Pardons and Parole. Or some case management experience in the nonprofit sector, where they have alternative incarceration centers, halfway houses, things of that nature. So the parole officer 1 salary ranges from $69,000 to $90,000. So you would start off at the 69 and you would matriculate up yearly on steps. But the correctional trainee positions are probably in the range of $50,000 to $60,000 per year.
Fantastic. Brian, what say you?
I did a little bit of research, Brian, and for Connecticut, the departments that are currently hiring for entry-level positions, starting police officers, probably 60 to 65,000. A few different departments here, just to give you an idea of salary range. Simsbury is 65 to 95,000. Newington, 68 to 94,000. West Hartford, 69 to 91,000. New Britain, 63 to 80,000. Some good resources for those who are potentially interested in policing is policeapp.com. So policeapp.com. And then if you put in Google, the Connecticut Police Academy, post, council, police, there will be tabs for job openings, and potential candidates can look to see all the openings and what the salary ranges are, what the requirements are, and educational requirements.
Thank you. So the commissioner and the governor would probably send me to the unemployment office if I didn't mention the starting salary of the Connecticut State Police and how to get up there. So 65,000 is the starting salary, although there's a lot of fluctuations in that based on your military service and different factors that go into there. In the academy, it starts at 50, but the day you graduate, it's 65. And the final step is $107,000. It's not to mention all the benefits, your take-home cruiser, the days off, the pension, and all that goes with it. And anything you need to learn about being a Connecticut State Trooper is beaconnecticuttrooper.com. Just spell it right out, all of it right out, beaconnecticuttrooper.com. Emory, anything?
Yeah, in order to be an inspector, you got to have at least 7 years of general police experience. 3 of those years have to be in the investigative area. It pays, starting pay is $75,000 and it goes as high as $92,000. Like the state police, we have take-home cars, weekends, holidays, all those things. Our police powers are statewide. We do extensive amount of traveling. We do extraditions all over the country. I have literally been all over the country. So it's quite a good job. It's an interesting job, but those are the minimum qualifications. You have to have 7 years of general police experience, 3 years in an investigative area.
Great, thanks, Emory. So I see a question popping up in the chat room, and it's Kendra, it's for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
It says, Kendra, sometimes people think criminal justice is a very male-dominated profession. What would you say to young women about how the profession is changing for women?
Well, I can tell you, the Department of Corrections does a phenomenal job of ensuring equality amongst their hiring process, for sure. So, and even at the district levels in the parole offices, when I look around at the 5 district offices, you can see it's split pretty much 50-50. So they do a phenomenal job of that, I will say. yeah, there is that stereotype out there for sure for women in the criminal justice system. But I mean, we may not be as strong or as tall or as men, so to speak, but one of the best weapons that we have of defense out here is often your verbalization skills. So I would absolutely support any women or females out there that want to get involved in this field.
Thanks, Kendra. And I would say, as a police commander, certainly women are invaluable and absolutely something we're trying to get more and more and more of. Their commodity for us. And we specify our recruiting efforts specifically towards women as well. So we'd encourage any woman, please come aboard and consider a career in criminal justice.
Brian, if I might add something, I've been married to a police officer for over 30 years. She retired from the Farmington Police Department as a detective, and she works with Emory as a police inspector in the Middletown Court District.
That's great. And my sister is a retired Connecticut State Trooper as well, and it's a very rewarding career for her. And she's moved on to a career in supporting victims of domestic violence. So not seeing any other questions in the chat room, everybody. I'm going to go on.
Brian, actually, there are a couple. There's two new questions that just popped up. Sure. How is military service? This question is for anyone. How is military service counted toward each of the professions' entry level?
I can jump off with that a little bit. I know that your military service is taken into consideration in the Connecticut State Police, I believe, in regards to your salary and your benefits around your pension as well. So that's a plus, and certainly something that's taken into consideration with the state police. I'm not sure it's that way with every police department. Brian, you might know a little better than I.
Yeah, so many departments, depending on their minimum requirements, a lot of departments have a high school diploma or GED as the minimum. Some will have a mix of 60 credits, an associate's degree, and military service. So it really depends on the department. But I can tell you that departments do value military service. The training and the discipline that is required within the military is an important attribute in policing. So it's something we typically view very positive.
So I can specifically speak to the state with a little more clarity. The military benefits you get is military leave with pay for no more than 28 days per calendar year. Active duty buyback benefit we have, and we also have prior service buyback benefit. Again, that goes towards the pension. So good benefits from the state in regards to prior military service.
And we have someone who's logged in who wants to ask a question. So if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi.
There we go.
I have a question for you. Connecticut State Police, do they do internships at any point?
We do internships to some level, and I believe it has to be with a university that we have an established relationship with prior to basically an MOU. But certainly you can reach out to me at brian.foley@ct.gov, brian.foley@ct.gov, and I can get you those definitive answers and connect you with the right people.
Okay, because I'm like, that's my main goal. Like, I've always been wanting to become a state trooper ever since I was little. So like, I'll take whatever step it is to get necessary to be there.
How old are you?
I'm 21. Oh no, 22, obviously.
So George, keep your eye out, because it's going to be popping up again very soon. We're going to be recruiting probably over the summer again for another class. So I would invite you to keep your eye out again. Be a ConnecticutTrooper.com. Consider that. Certainly, but also, any police department's great, and get your foot in the door there, kids. So apply as many as often as possible.
Yeah, I tried applying for Waterbury PD, and then obviously when I graduate college, I'm gonna apply for state trooper. That's in May of 2022.
Those are all great police departments. The chief of Waterbury, I spoke to him this afternoon, and I don't know if he spoke on a national audience today.
Oh yeah, I seen that.
Through Senator Blumenthal's office there. So that's Chief Spagnola, a great guy, and making a lot of progressive changes out down there in Waterbury. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been selected to speak today to represent law enforcement all around the nation.
Yes. Thank you.
Great. So we have another question in the chat room, if I can go ahead. Okay, it's for Brian Enns. Can you talk about restorative justice? What does that mean and how does it prepare someone for a career in criminal justice?
Sure. So what kind of sets University of St. Joseph's apart from other kind of traditional criminal justice programs is that not only do we discuss criminal justice, but we also look at the restorative justice aspects of it. Restorative justice is really about repairing the harm that's done by crime. We try to look at it and take a cooperative approach to it where we bring the offender, the victim, and the community together to try to repair the harm. And in traditional justice, criminal justice, it's all about law breaking, who broke the law, and how are we going to punish that person. Many times that tends to leave victims kind of out of the process. So restorative justice is kind of a theory or part of criminal justice where, again, we just try to look at it from a different lens and try to involve the wider community, really have the victim being a part of the process to repair harm and prevent crime.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. We do have some more questions in the chat room, so let's keep them coming. This is fantastic. If someone has a bachelor's degree in psychology or social work, what would be a good first position to look into in the criminal justice world?
Brian, that's probably you again, I'm thinking.
Yeah, so really, of course, I love to see students go into policing. That's where I spend my career. There's a lot of other opportunities within criminal justice, whether it's the law enforcement side, homeland security, going on to law school, private security, private detective, paralegal, being a victim advocate might be a job that would be good for someone who has a degree in social work, psychology, or sociology. But we have many police officers that have degrees in psychology or who have a political science degree or a sociology degree. So there are a lot of different opportunities with a degree in psychology or any of the other majors.
So I can also speak to some of the stuff that's going on around policing across the United States, but also here in Connecticut is the need for social workers in the field to assist criminal justice. Now, we can all debate as to what level that should occur on. I don't believe there's any debate that a social worker can be of help to a police officer. That being said, the town of East Windsor just approached the commissioner's office last week talking about how one of their police officers is an MSW, but is an actual social worker with social work experience, and she's been a cop for 10 years as well. So that type of work in de-escalation, in speaking the language, in dealing with a person in crisis, that those two degrees can provide a vast amount of experience and can help a lot more than just the regular officer coming out of the academy. Certainly developing relationships through your career is going to give you that valuable experience as well. But to have that degree up front, fantastic. If you look at the CIT training that officers, and that's crisis intervention training, it's about de-escalation. And so much of that wraps around psychology and wraps around social work. And this is the kind of interactions on the street at the most critical times when people in their worst moments, that a person with a social work degree or a psychology degree, I believe is going to have a basis for knowledge on how to effectively deal with that peacefully, and certainly something that's welcomed by, I'm sure, any police commander. Thank you.
And also chime in on that too, for the Department of Corrections, there are mental health counselors obviously inside of the facilities. There are positions again in the nonprofit sector as entry level, same type of thing, mental health clinicians at the treatment programs out here in the community. So that's also another option that you can look at for entry level.
And I have to say that it's, in policing, you have to be able to be comfortable with the people that you are there to serve. And so any degree that allows you to interact with people in a positive way it serves everyone. It serves the department and it helps the community. So that sort of level of comfort is extremely important. Brian, that CIT training, I use that still today. Whenever I talk to someone that may be in some sort of crisis, I talk to them and get them calm and then try to find someone that can help them. So that CIT training, something that I had years ago, I still use today.
Thanks, Emory. Yeah,
Kendra,
sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Kendra mentioned earlier how important communication is, and that really is. I stress that to my students that, you know, when I ask them what's the most important tool that you'll have as a professional in the criminal justice field, it's not your sidearm, it's not your handcuffs, it's not your badge, et cetera. It's your ability to communicate with others. That's definitely the most important thing, is to have good communication skills.
So in Hartford, we had a kind of a groundbreaking program several years ago, and that was a partnership with the DMIS, Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And in that partnership, we actually had a guy named Barry Skoletsky. He was a social worker for DMIS. And his duties, 40 hours a week, he was assigned to the Hartford Police Department. And Emory, you'll remember if there was a 1044 call, and that's a person who's having a personal crisis, Barry would respond with police officers. And to have that non-police officer in plain clothes talking to a person in crisis, because sometimes that uniform is just going to say things that to that person that shuts them down. But to have a social worker there in the field, Barry, who could speak the language, who brought immediate calm, he was not a threat to anybody, was invaluable. And I've seen him work absolute magic in getting someone that we would have to fight tooth and nail with to get them to lift a finger to go out the door. And you know, Barry would have them laughing walking out the door. So I think that field is expanding, and that's the social work field in assistance with law enforcement. Again, you're going to hear people argue as to what degree, and along those lines, that's the political end of it. I'm not overly concerned with that. There's no debating that it is a very helpful tool in law enforcement and de-escalation.
Sure, and as I had indicated too, when I spoke earlier, the Division of Parole also has a specialized unit specifically for the mental health population. So offenders who are coming out on supervision, who have, you know, met specific criteria and are DMIS targeted, and have specific diagnosis will matriculate over to the mental health unit. So those officers definitely have that background as well.
And what made the other part of what made Barry so valuable is that Barry was a part of the system. So he could go to St. Francis and go into the ER. He knew who to talk to, how to get this person the help they needed. He knew the people in the ER over at, you know, Hartford Hospital. So that was valuable, you know, to have him there and working with us, you know, to get this whole process moving so that person could get some help. So I absolutely agree with you on that one. Brian, I love Barry. He was great.
He retired.
Yes, he's great. Absolutely great.
Go ahead, Hillary.
Great. This is an interesting question. Can each of the panelists talk a little bit about how you decided to pursue your career? And if you were starting now, would you do anything differently? Are the opportunities different in criminal justice or in law?
I'll go last.
I'll go first. I'll get it done. I was very young, and my neighbor was a state trooper, and I, you know, started talking to him, and he kind of was my mentor, and he let me go on a ride along, and that pretty much sealed, you know, my interest in law enforcement. And I was actually 19 when I was hired by a police department. I was in the academy when I was 19. Back then you could be 19, now you have to be at least 21 to be in the academy. In retrospect, probably too young, but it all worked out. And my bachelor's is in criminal justice. My master's is in public administration. But, you know, I don't think I would do anything different. I was, like Brian had mentioned earlier, I was blessed. It was a great career, very rewarding career. You know, it can be a very, very tough and challenging career at times, but you see more good than you do bad. You have a chance to really make an impact on people's lives. And I enjoyed my over 23 years, and now I'm teaching, and I get to see, you know, a lot of my students go on and become successful, graduate the police academy, go to law school, or go into corrections. I've had a few students corrections, and that's very, very rewarding as well.
Well, my career, the first contact I had with a police officer was at a career fair in high school. And like, I think I was one of only two people that talked to this man in the gym. And I never forgot that long conversation I had with him. And I thought, man, this sounds like a great career. And I just end up going to college. And, down the road, I met Carrie Saxon Perry, the mayor of Hartford. And we just by chance, and we just started talking. And I was in corrections, and she said, why don't you apply? And I'm like, I'm okay. But she said, just apply. You can all figure it out as you go along. And, the next thing you know, I'm a police officer in Hartford. And it's been, like you said, Brian, it's been a rewarding career. I was a community policing person. I believe in quality of life for everybody in the city of Hartford. Every position I had in the police department dealt with quality of life enforcement and trying to raise the quality of life of everyone that every neighborhood that we police. And that I carried that right through to deputy chief. You couldn't work for me unless you understood and did that every day. It's to raise everyone's quality of life and to work with the various departments within the city to do that. So it was very rewarding. Not sure I would do anything different. I started very young, so I don't know that I would do anything different. It just was, I met so many wonderful people, and it's been great.
For me, I would say, a lot of times I think people that get into law enforcement have a background and families that have been involved in law enforcement. And I am the first person in my family to actually get involved in law enforcement. So, I went to college. I was interested in criminal justice and criminology for whatever reason. I just kind of was drawn to it. And after graduating, I began working at an alternative incarceration center, which is, again, like I've said, the nonprofit agency out there. And I originally had aspired to be a probation officer, but the applications and the process out there just wasn't coming around, and parole opened up. So I had never really thought about it, but you can't kind of be that picky when you're trying to get into a career like this. So I applied for parole, and I was offered the position. I accepted it, and I was a little taken back very early on when I accepted the position to find out I would be carrying a firearm, going out into the community, potentially taking people into custody and remanding them back to incarceration. But I ran with it, and I absolutely love this career. I wouldn't change anything. I think it gives it's a great opportunity to impact people out, offenders coming out into the community, to help them affect change. So I wouldn't change anything.
Thanks, Kendra. So I already told you, I took the police test just to make my mom happy, and I left town the next day. Literally, that's exactly how it worked. Took the test in the Hartford the Hartford Civic Center in 1993. And look, I don't want to just talk about police work here, as there's jobs as prosecutors, public defenders, investigators, there's jobs in victim services. There's a lot of jobs out there in the criminal justice field. But as far as myself, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I took the test on a goof, and I would never, ever change a thing. It's been the most rewarding aspect of my life. And I've been incredibly fortunate to know and love the city of Hartford, to know and love the people and the neighborhoods in the city of Hartford, and now to have an opportunity with the state. I'm incredibly lucky, and no one owes me anything, and I owe this city and the state everything for what's occurred, and it's been a very rewarding career, and as are so many other careers in the criminal justice field, not just law enforcement.
And I agree. I'm sorry. There are, like Brian said, there are so many jobs out there. Victim advocates are invaluable in our office. We partner with them. Our investigators, the prosecutors, even the public defender's office. They're all invaluable pieces. So there are plenty of jobs out there, not just policing. All those are important members of the team here. So don't just think just law enforcement, think criminal justice.
And if we can get kind of the broader system to take a more of a restorative justice approach to criminal justice, that'll open up more job opportunities as well with victim advocates, with facilitators. We need facilitators to run these encounters between victims and offenders and mediate the outcomes that we want. And those will all be new jobs if we can really try to get restorative justice, get the ball rolling.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. We actually have two questions, one from Myra and another that was sent to me directly, which I think are basically asking about the same thing. Most of us grew up believing that law enforcement is there to protect us, but for someone who may be from a community where that perspective could be different, how would you encourage him or her that they should pursue a career in criminal justice?
So that's a challenge we're facing now with the state police in recruiting and trying to recruit in our urban communities and to recruit a diverse background, which in all honesty has probably been one of the most weakest points of the Connecticut State Police has been the recruiting and retention in diverse backgrounds. So what we say is, and luckily having the experience in Hartford and seeing so many things go bad and so many things go great, be a part of the change. You're seeing everything that's going on out there. Be a part of that change. You want to have an effect on policing. You want to have effect on police and community relations. Man, step up. We need you to come in and be a part of that change. And I think you're going to find policing has changed. All the scars that police have, I believe that they've earned those scars and brought it upon themselves. And now we have to, as police administrators and police commanders, somehow change that course of direction. And we are at the Connecticut State Police and at the Post Academy. But nothing says it more than please come be a part of the change. You can be the start and make that change.
And I tell that to my students all the time, to be the change. With all due respect to the panel, it's going to be the younger generation that really does change the system for the better. And that is our younger students and those who are interested in going into the field. So totally agree with Brian on that.
And the other part is that you have to, you're not like you have to go in with the idea that, you're going to be a part of the community and not just somebody that comes in there, occasionally, kind of get to know the people that live there. When I taught community policing at Post, part of what I talked about is like, know who lives in the blue house, know who lives in the gray house, occasionally get out of your cruiser and talk to people, the guy cutting his grass, introduce yourself to people. So it's, instead of that sort of occupying army, you become a part of, the community itself. So it makes it a lot easier to police. It makes it a lot easier to understand, where you're coming from, and, improving people's quality of life is important. It's an important part of policing. It should never go away. And that should be your mindset, that everybody deserves a quality of life, no matter where you live.
Again, I agree with Emory that that's one of the hallmarks of policing is community policing and problem-oriented policing, trying to improve the quality of life of those who live, in particular neighborhoods. And that's critically important. Getting out of your cruiser, talking to people, getting to know everyone, business owners,
yes,
clergy members, people who, all the, residents, that's critically important.
And trust me, I didn't police I policed in Dutch Point, the housing project. I policed in the Lower Park Street area. I didn't police in, the suburban parts of Hartford. So those were difficult areas, but I got to know the people that lived in Dutch Point and who lived in what apartment, and got to know the kids there. I got to know the families there. And it's a critical part of policing. It sort of gets lost a little bit, but if we kind of get back to that a little bit, I think things will improve. The relationship between community and policing and law enforcement in general will improve.
Okay, great. And the questions are still coming in. This is wonderful. We do have this might be a quick question, but do applicants for state police and local police and all other jobs within criminal justice, do applicants with college degrees have a higher chance of getting those jobs?
Let me just say for the state police, because he singled it out, that higher chance of getting the job. I'm going to let Brian answer that on how a college degree will prepare them to get through the process. There is a pay benefit, a pay scale benefit with the state police based on having a bachelor's degree. But Brian, you want to talk about how having that degree can help prepare you for taking the test and getting through the process?
Yeah, so, I worked in hiring for a number of years in West Hartford, and there was a bump in pay of $2,000 for a bachelor's degree, someone who had a bachelor's degree. For a number of years, we had a requirement for an associate's at a minimum, or military service or a certified police officer. They've since gone back to a high school degree just to try to broaden the applicant pool. But I really do feel that a criminal justice, restorative justice degree, it really helps people who want to go into the criminal justice profession. The other majors are good as well: social work, sociology, political science, and psychology. But specifically with criminal justice, you're going to learn all about criminal justice. You'll learn how to write reports, which will help you in the police academy. You'll learn how to interview, take statements. You'll learn criminal law, which is an area in the police academy that gives some students trouble. So, and some of the research does show that those with a college degree get in less career-ending situations on the job. They typically have less complaints made against them by citizens, and they typically take less of an enforcement action in terms of making an arrest or giving out a ticket. In other words, they perhaps use their discretion a little more broadly. So I personally feel that it's important to try to work towards your bachelor's degree. And again, of course, I'm kind of biased towards the criminal justice major, but anything that you can do to kind of set yourself apart, and that's what you need to do. You need to really try to make yourself more marketable, kind of set yourself apart from others, and a college degree is a good way to do that. Thank you.
Professor Enns, I just have a question, actually. Do people who are hired without a degree, do many of them go on to earn their degree while they're working?
Well, that's a great question. A lot of them do. A lot of applicants coming on now do have a degree. Probably when Brian and Emory and I both, three of us started way back in I started in the late 80s, early 90s. A lot of people came on without that college degree. So I worked on my degree while I was working the midnight shift. I finished my bachelor's and my master's while I was working. There are a lot of tuition reimbursement programs that are offered by departments. West Hartford did. I'm not sure about Hartford, the state police, but they would pay you to go back and go to college. They will pay your tuition as long as it was, I think, criminal justice, political science, psychology. It had to be kind of a social science type degree. But if they're going to pay for your tuition, it makes all the sense in the world to try to go back and finish your degree. And now with online learning formats, it's even more convenient to go back and learn your degree.
Also, I can add with regards to a college degree, for a number of positions within DOC, parole included, it substitutes for your experience. So if 6 years are needed and you have a bachelor's degree, you've already satisfied 4 years of that.
And it's also going to help if you want to move up the ranks. Emory up to deputy chief, and Brian in the command structure as well. It'll help, for promotional aspects.
Great, thank you. Here's an interesting question. Is there ever an age limit for any of the professions within the criminal justice field?
I'm ready to speak on that. We love mature can't know is the answer for us in the state. We love mature candidates. We love the older candidates. My gosh, I don't want to dissuade anyone that's younger from applying. And at the same time, an older candidate brings a whole life's worth of experience. And what I find the most important, communication skills, that just takes a lifetime, years and decades to really develop. They come prepackaged with that. So we really do enjoy our older candidates, less likely to use force excessively. There's a lot of statistics that support the benefits. In fact, a lot of police officers, after their careers as police officers retire, and go on to be police officers again, because those other towns want those retired older cops that aren't going to cause problems, that aren't going to have the young go get them ego issues in that split second decision making time. So they look for those older candidates.
I would say almost in every academy class, there's probably a few cadets that are well into their 30s or 40s, even 50s. Or, you know, career change, or just want to try to help their communities. So it is definitely more common now than it was in the past.
And Connecticut is unique as a former recruiter for Hartford. Connecticut was unique because we didn't have any age limits. New York, I believe, has an age limit, and I think Mass does. Like, so Connecticut is unique in that you don't. And I agree with Brian. You bring just a vast amount of experience, life experience, that's so important when you're out there dealing with people. It's invaluable.
For most federal jobs, you cannot be over the age of, I believe it's 35 or 36 to apply for any federal law enforcement job. But in Connecticut, sky's the limit.
Yep.
Great, that's good to hear. Okay, here's another question. Can each of you or some of you talk about some skills or traits that college students or applicants should focus on developing to help prepare for the range of criminal justice careers?
I can certainly chime in on that and say that strong organizational skills are very, very, very beneficial in this line of work, whether it's probation, parole, any type of case management position that you might encounter. The ability to work independently, having a strong sense of self-direction, again, verbalization skills and the ability to communicate effectively with people, very, very important.
So I would
I'm sorry,
go ahead, Emory.
I'd say communication skills are number one. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to communicate with people, and not just the people that you work with, but the people that you serve. And it's just so critical. I will go so far as to say it's sort of a lost art, being able to walk into a room or walk out into some street and be able to talk and communicate with people is just so valuable. You know, when I see a young cop out there talking to people, I'm like, nice job, good job. And be comfortable. It's so important.
So I'd like to compliment Emory. That guy could walk out there and just talk to anybody.
I will talk to anyone.
Anytime, you just throw it, which is amazing.
Yeah.
One more thing, something that I learned later in my career and tried to surround myself with people that had this skill. I look for people who just care. Please, just care about the people that you're serving. That's all I ask. Do you want to be a detective to tell your friends at home that you drive a fast car and you work on a homicide, or you want to be a detective because you care about people?
Right.
We'll teach you the skills. We'll get you the experience you need. But if you just care, you're going to do so much more. So while you're in college, start trying to have an understanding of people, where they come from, what their life experiences have been. No one cares about your life experience typically. What about the people you're serving? Care about them. A lot of times your life experiences are completely different from theirs. So I would try to separate that. No one cares about my life experiences. I would try to understand theirs. I want to find people to work with in criminal justice that just care. Please just care. So caring, hard to teach.
Yeah, and I would agree with Kendra, Emory, and Brian that probably the most important thing is having that empathy and having the ability to want to help people. So if you're going into a criminal justice career and the number one reason is to help people, then you're probably going into the wrong type of career path. You really want to be able to work with people and help people and make a difference in their lives. And we're usually helping people at a time when they might be experiencing the worst moment in their lives, but we're there to help them. And that's very powerful and it's very important. So other things would be, again, the communications skills are critical, both oral and written. Service oriented, which would go along with helping people, being able to make good decisions, and sometimes quick decision making skills is important. Leadership skills, also important. So a lot of things I think are things, critical thinking skills, analytical thinking skills. All those things are really part of any profession of criminal justice.
I do have another question that was sent directly to me, and it's about forensic science. A few years ago, there seemed to be an emphasis on forensic science. Is training in forensics necessary for a career in criminal justice? And is it something that's taught just in forensic science programs, or is it, yeah, Professor Enns, if you could speak to that?
Sure, I think I can start on that one. So with CSI and the kind of glamorization of forensics and the policing shows, the detective shows on TVs, the movies, there's kind of been an influx of people who want to be a forensic scientist. They want to go out and process crime scenes. The real world is not like on TV. And sometimes I'll have students that, their career goal is to be a forensic scientist. And a criminal justice degree is probably not the path. If you want to work in a lab, you need to have a doctorate typically in chemistry, biology. If you want to process crime scenes and be a police detective, well, you have to start by being a police officer, being out on the street, kind of pay your dues, do your time, study for the detective's test, become a detective, and then perhaps be in the crime scene side where you're actually processing the crime scene. So, we just have to be careful with forensics that we're not trying to get students and kind of give the false promise that if you come and you get a degree in forensics, you're going to all of a sudden be out there processing crime scenes or, wearing the lab coat, working in a lab and processing DNA.
So you hit everything. The state of Connecticut has the Division of Scientific Services, which has a lot of non-sworn scientists working in the lab, and we do hire a lot of people, but it's at the highest degree. And again, a lot come with law enforcement experience. I would say that where you saw that during the CSI generation a decade ago and how everyone was pushing for that, that's been absolutely run over by the crime analysts now, and people taking the crime analyst positions in the data. What we call them the new detectives, where they're not sworn and they develop and gobble up data and learn from it. They do social media scrubbing. They do a lot of research in regards to technology. So that is the latest, greatest breaking field. Nothing against forensic sciences. We need that as well. And we're always scrambling to turn out cases at the lab. But yeah, the new technology aspect of it is very, very important.
That crime analysis is, as a police manager, is critical. It's critical in helping you to deploy your resources to a particular area. It's critical in identifying what that problem is and getting the necessary people. And it's not just policing. Sometimes it's a public works issue or a health department issue, whatever it is, to that area. So the crime analysis piece is so very important. And being able to understand, all those dots on that map and understand what's going on, it's a very critical part of policing, police management, actually.
Great, thank you. So we have, looks like one more question that just came in. Can police jobs help you land federal jobs later in the future? Are those local jobs, are those helpful going for those federal jobs?
Yeah, so federal jobs are very competitive. And again, anything that you can do to set yourself apart will help. I had a student, I was teaching at Central as an adjunct, and I had a student that worked in West Hartford for about 2.5 years and just got a job with the FBI. So we do see officers at the local and state level who then perhaps go on to obtain federal jobs. And again, it's just something, again, that will help set yourself apart, give you that experience on the street, the academy, get your degree, and try to really market yourself.
Great, thank you. So I think that looks like that's it for questions. But Myra, I love your comment. I feel like it should be said out loud that this was such a great talk, very informative and encouraging for Myra to keep pushing through her degree. That's fantastic. That's what we're here for. That's why we're doing this. So that's wonderful. And Rhona, Dr. Free sent a comment to everyone. You're also inspiring. I wish we could have a national audience hear about your compassion, commitment to community, and interest in caring and communication.
And Hillary, I'm
Very well
glad
said.
to talk to anyone who's interested in a career in criminal justice. I don't know if my contact information is somewhere or just to go on the USJ website. But anyone who's thinking about a career in criminal justice or preparing for, the police process, or perhaps taking classes here, what a criminal justice degree is like, what the courses are, I'm happy to talk to anyone who's interested.
Perfect. Yeah, if anyone who's logged in tonight wants to contact any of our panelists, you all have my email address from your RSVPs, Hillary at 20media20.com. So feel free to reach out to me and we can put people in touch.
Absolutely.
Sounds great, Hillary. Thank you. Does anyone, Emory, Kendra, Brian, either of the Bryans, anyone want to end with a final comment before we call it a night?
Thank you. That's all. Just thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me. What an
Yes,
honor
thank
to
you.
sit on a panel with everybody here, and I'm humbled. Thank you.
And I just want to say again, this was just, I thank you for inviting me. And I just want to say what a great career this was. It really is a very rewarding career. I know you can see so much on TV and you read so much in the newspaper, but it's so far more rewarding than it is the ugly side of it.
And I agree with Brian and Kendra, what Kendra said, and Emory as well. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, ditto that as well. And just best wishes to everybody that participated in this tonight. And it may be challenging to break into this field at some point, but just keep pushing along because it will ultimately be very rewarding for you in the end.
Fantastic. And thank you all very much for the great questions. You kept Hillary very busy this evening, so we appreciate it. On behalf of all of our panelists and 2020 Media and University of St. Joseph's, we just do want to thank you in general for joining us this evening. And please watch us. Most of our details are on social media, but of course on the 2020 Media site and on University of St. Joe's for our next virtual series that we are starting to produce now, which will be on education with a focus on teaching. So we will continue to keep this moving along, and we appreciate all of your time and your effort, especially on a beautiful 68-degree spring evening. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. This is great.
Thanks, everyone.